Hi, I'm Michael. Welcome to Beyond the Screenplay, the podcast where each episode we do a conversational deep dive analysis into a film. Today, for our sequel summer finale, we are talking about Alien Romulus, written by Fede Alvarez and Rado Sayagas, directed by Fede Alvarez. I'm joined by the Beyond the Screenplay team, Trisha Arand.
Hello, everyone.
Brian Bittner.
Hello, hello.
And Alex Calleros.
Hi.
Okay, so like I said, this is the season finale of our sequel summer season. It began 9 weeks ago with Inside Out 2. We did a little trip to the world of Mad Max to talk about Furiosa. We talked about Quiet Place Day 1. We went on a Twister, little journey, a windy journey through the Twisters. Stopped by Deadpool, Wolverine with some fun guests. Talked about Alien 3 last week, and now we are talking about the latest in the Alien franchise, Alien Romulus. It has been quite a ride. It's
pretty
been
good.
A lot of fun.
Season for sequels. Like they were all,
yeah.
Yeah, pretty solid sequels this summer. Reminder for everyone. So if you don't know, these are video podcasts. And so we have a YouTube channel. You can watch all of these on YouTube. Brian always has fun themes. Like you could see his Weyland-Yutani shirt right now if you were watching on YouTube. Also, we do every month Patreon exclusive episodes. There's other inside jokes happening if you're watching for the Alex over there.
Nobody's supposed to comment on that. It's just supposed to be there.
Yes, it just happens.
IYK.
Every month we do Patreon exclusive episodes. So several of the episodes that I mentioned, our Twisters episode, Inside Out 2, Alien 3, those are all Patreon exclusives. Our Patreon exclusive for next month is going to be Garden State. For the 20th anniversary, we are revisiting this masterpiece that I've seen a million times. But that was only in the span of like the years after that. And then I haven't seen it in a long time. So that's going to be really interesting to go back and just look at that time period, that movie 20 years later, what we make of that. So that's for Patreons in September. Also, if you're a supporter on Patreon, you get ad-free episodes of all of these. So all of our episodes, if you are a Patreon subscriber, are there ad-free. Top tier patrons also get access to our film club where we chat with you guys and hear your thoughts on the movies that we're watching and often discussing. So the next one is going to be September 21st. We're going to hear from all of you top tier patrons on what your takeaways were from sequel summer, what makes a good sequel. And then we're also going to talk about Alien Romulus. And I really want to hear everybody's takes on this movie. It's easy to join for those also. Just as soon as you sign up, you can see our posts where we post the Zoom link, and then you just come and join and we all talk about movies. So that's over there on the Patreon. And there's also extra bonus fun stuff. Trisha, do you want to tell people what else they get?
Sure. So I've mentioned it here a couple of times. You might have heard it already by now, but I have a little coverage business, like side hustle that I do, mostly because I really enjoy it. I love to read scripts from writers, screenplays at all stages of development by all different writers and places in their careers and people all over the world who are writing screenplays. And I have a little business where I read your script and I write coverage for you to help you meet your goals with your screenplays. I love doing this kind of work. I've read for studios and management companies. This is my favorite way to be a reader. So if you are interested in that and how I can help you, you also get a discount on that if you join us over on Patreon. So definitely, please, you can look it up on my website, which is just my name. It's trishaarand.com, and all the info is there. And then, I'll get you your patron discount and I'll take a look at your script.
I have to say, like, how many episodes have we had this season and before where Trisha solves a movie, basically? It's like, I wish they had consulted with Trisha before they went into production. Right. Because she knew how to fix it. Yes. So don't make that mistake.
That is true. However, also making sequels is really hard. So I just want to say that. I don't know if some of these writers could not crack it. I'm not quite sure that I could have, except in hindsight. But if you want to stay ahead of the curve, you can also just hire me now.
Yes. Yes. So as you can see, lots of reasons to join us on Patreon. It also just helps us make this show and keep going. And we love all the patrons. There's a Discord you get access to. We love chatting with all you guys over on Discord, hearing your thoughts. But anyway, so that's enough preamble. You can support us on Patreon. It's over there. Let's talk about Alien Romulus. Okay, so this movie's insane. I didn't know what to expect. So as I've talked about, I love the original Aliens. I've come to appreciate. Alien 3 was interesting revisiting. We talked about it last week, and I had sort of an appreciation for it, but also there are obvious ways it falls short. Prometheus, it's very bumpy. We've talked about that. Alien Covenant, I kind of was into. It felt like it embraced its B horror like roots and was just like, I'm gonna be over here being a horror movie. And then also androids, talking to androids for a while. And so doing another movie in this universe, I'm kind of at that point where I'm just like, yeah, just keep going. It's fine. Like, you'll hit something good probably eventually, like it's a numbers game. And seeing the little bits of the teaser that I did before I was able to close my eyes to avoid spoilers, it felt like it was going back to the original world, like the original Alien, that vibe, that aesthetic, kind of like Rogue One did and The Mandalorian has done, of like, okay, we get it. People want the original texture feel from that first installment. And so that got me excited, but aesthetics aren't enough. The cast was kind of exciting. Kaylee Spaney was really great. We talked about her performance last season. That was last season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Priscilla.
No,
and Priscilla.
Last season was Spy Spring. Our mini season. Yeah.
Yeah. But she was great in Priscilla, so now she's become one of my like favorite people of like, oh, I can't wait to see. So her being in this, that was exciting. So there were a lot of things going for it, but I didn't know what to expect. And overall, I really had a blast watching this movie because it did so many of those things I was hoping it would do. It was in the original universe. It felt like the same texture. It was borrowing also from like the video game, and it was just borrowing from all these things. It really felt like it wanted to do a holistic Alien franchise sequel. There were moments that felt like Aliens. There were moments that felt like Resurrection. There were nods to Prometheus. We got some black goo. Like, it did everything. And I appreciated that it was able to hold all that. I don't know that it needed to do as much as it tried to do. And I think it faltered a little bit in trying to hold all of that. And so I want to talk about that and where this movie feels really like it's embracing the kind of original genre and format and even structure, when it felt like it kind of wandered into Prometheus-y territory for me in terms of tone and genre. But then how for me, in the end, it really like stuck the landing and did a great job of making me invested in the relationship of Andy and Rhea. Rhea? That's how you say her name? Rain. Okay. I could never...
Like the weather.
Some of the volume mixing was hard. It was hard for me to understand them a lot of the time. But overall, I feel like it really focused on that relationship, those characters that like sucked me in and got me invested. And it was just so twisted and messed up by the end in a way that only an Alien movie could do. So I had a blast. I still need to figure out exactly how I feel about it beat by beat, but overall, I had a really good time. Brian, what did you make of this movie?
Can I say I don't know and then just like listen for the whole episode? Is that legal? I really don't know. It made me think of different reactions I've had to other movies we've talked about in the podcast, where like Dead Reckoning, where it was the best movie ever or the worst movie ever, depending on where we were in the runtime. Matrix Resurrections, where I liked it until it just started being like, hey, remember every scene from the original movies? Let's just do those. Oh, you mean like a cool twist on it? No, it's just the scene. Again, we're just doing it. Tenet, where I couldn't understand what anyone was saying and then was just waiting for it to be over at sometimes and mad that I had to keep watching it. But then also like positive, like despite all that, right? Yeah, the sound mixing and like there's like a lot of mumbling going on. I want to recommend a video. Ed Vega, who we had on for our Deadpool versus Wolverine and Wolverine episode, did a video called "Why We All Need Subtitles Now" about how sound mixing and sound recording and acting is just like changed so much over the years. So there are definitely things where I'm like, that was an important plot line that someone just said. I didn't understand some of the words. But yeah, it was just such a roller coaster of feelings, which was like the opening sequence just nailed it. Just like the alien thing, whatever that thing is. I feel like all the alien movies do a really good job about being like, we're going to hook you in the first 10 minutes with like, look how Ridley Scott alien we're being, even when it is Ridley Scott again. And I was literally watching that sequence going like, oh no, characters are going to show up, aren't they? Can I just watch like this, like floating through space and through the spaceship for 2 hours, and can we just call it good? And yeah, the characters and the plot were they were fine. I didn't hate it, but I was never really that invested in it. We'll get into the Andy of it all, but I feel like good Andy was like, his performance was so strange in a way that it was supposed to be, but also in a way that made it hard for me to connect to those siblings, essentially. Then Ian Holm showed up, and the first shot of him was really not good. And then later shots were like kind of excellent. And I was like, but like you had I didn't care because the first shot was so like,
Speaking of Rogue One.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get into that later. And then the action was good. There were some really cool sequences. And then I realized they were just doing a greatest hits of everything. Like, oh, she's going to get in the suit, and he's going to say that line, and okay. Evil Andy I thought was good. And, again, kind of a remix of, we've seen this before with Ian Holm and Alien and different, androids throughout, with David, obviously. But also like, it was cool and he was interesting and he was good at like that weird, awkward role kind of. And then the alien baby was real bad. But then it was also kind of incredible. Like, I don't know how I feel about this movie. So let's figure it out together, the end.
All right, 10-4. Trisha, what about you?
Yep. I mean, so I was hooked really early. I was, in our last episode, I described this like thing that's been burrowing into my chest of maybe I need to watch all the Alien movies a lot of times. Like maybe there's a James Bond level of obsession growing here for me. And in the first like 30, 40 minutes of this movie, I was like, oh yes. I do want this deeply. And the vibe of it, the grime of it, the like throwbackiness to it. I mean, it just does have a lot of texture and feels Blade Runner and original Alien, which is what you want, right? Like it does have that like vintage Ridley Scott, like I can't get the goo off of me feeling to it. And like I was really sold on Rain and on her predicament and wanting to, like you're going to die on this planet from this black lung disease that your parents died from. And like, there is literally no way for you to win in this system and like all of that. I was actually we can come back to this. I was a little bummed that the refusal of the call was 3 lines long.
It's almost like just don't do it in that case.
Right.
Like just skip the refusal.
Like, we're just going to talk you into it, I guess, really quick. Mm-hmm. Or just that I had some sense of like, I don't know, exterior stakes. We can come back to this. What happens if they get caught, right? They're doing something they shouldn't be doing. And it feels like maybe there should be some kind of like fear of what if we get caught? But I guess you have other engines that are creating your urgency. Anyway, let's circle back. But other than that, like I really like the premise and the setup. And I like the core relationship between those two. I don't even mind that the other characters are not characters. One might say. Mm-hmm. They all seem to be related mm-hmm. or just kind of, they're just like a group of friends. But yeah, I don't know. I just was into it. I was really, really into it. And then as inevitably happens, And I even liked like all the way up through like here's a whole bunch of face huggers and like she's got a xenomorph that's going to burst out of her like she's going to have the chest burster and we're going to do the whole thing with it. I was with it. I love it. It started taking some really big swings as it went along. And then they got bigger and the swings got bigger. And then we started getting more of the fan service in the second half of the movie that's just fan service. And meta, right? Like it's starting to remind me that I know what this is. Like even the way that the face huggers and the chest burster are revealed, if you'd never seen an alien movie before, you could still like track with it, keep the horror of it. It's not expecting you to know necessarily. If you do, your experience might be enriched by that. If you don't, it's still scary as hell. But then as it goes along, stuff starts to not mean anything unless you're an audience member that's seen at least a couple of these other movies. And that's where it kind of starts to be like, oh boy. Ian Holm is a yike from me.
The representation of him in this movie, to be clear.
Obviously, the real Ian Holm is not a yike, but also the real Ian Holm is not alive.
Right. It's always that's a really interesting and uncomfortable thing. Like,
yeah.
So
like, he didn't tell you could do this.
Nope. His estate did,
Sure.
I guess.
Yeah.
How much money did you pay them?
Yeah.
And then alien hybrid baby, the whole finale. I will say there were some people in our screening, as you all know, because you were there, that laughed. And you don't want anyone to laugh. If you're the filmmaker, what you want is exactly 0 people to laugh. And the number in our theater was not 0.
But they also applauded, and that's why I don't know how I feel about this movie, and I don't think anyone.
At which moment did they laugh? Was it when it was like literally like still a baby in like
no,
the
it
pod?
was when it was like the big giant one
Slender
like
Man.
crawled out of the shadows.
Was that laughter of like I think this is funny, or is it like I'm so deeply uncomfortable I don't know what to do with myself?
Nobody knows, Alex. That's the problem.
That's what I took it as, though.
I took it as like holy
like
holy crap, this is like insane. My mind can't handle this. I'm gonna laugh.
Horror laughter. Yeah.
And is it an alien movie if you don't take a couple of big swings and get real weird?
Sure.
Right? Like,
Correct.
Is it part of getting really weird a mandate of the Alien franchise?
You gotta push it.
Sure.
Out.
But let's talk about whether or not any of it works. I don't know. There's the second half is like, we gotta unpack it for a while.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Also, we did the Alien Baby and Alien Resurrection. We'll get into it.
Wow, so many thoughts have already been shared. I was kind of two minds while watching this movie. One of which was slightly influenced by just a couple things I'd read online of, oh, is this just fan fiction? The way like Rogue One was kind of Star Wars fan fiction. Is this movie Alien fan fiction? The comparison to Rogue One, maybe going in like, okay, and I was really liking it. I liked the visual effects. I feel like it was in the hands of a very competent filmmaker right from the get-go. I liked just how it moved. It kind of had this roller coaster ride momentum to it, which is different from Alien, of course, but I was enjoying. And then it got to those moments like Ian Holm where it was like, oh, that's what they're talking about with the Rogue One and the fan fiction. But then like, I got past it and it like was also kind of fine. And I was still really enjoying myself. And then, oh God, he said, get away from her, you bitch. And people in our audience clapped. And I was like, no, don't clap. Like they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have done that. That's not right. That's not correct to do this right now. And yet the whole sequence, like before and after that, I was having a blast and like truly enveloped in the movie. And just on this amazing roller coaster ride, kind of as you were describing it, Michael. And I thought about what is this reminding me of? And I've been very outspoken about my love for Mission Impossible Fallout. That movie also moves at a ridiculous pace. Plot twists and turns don't quite make sense. People talk at each other about things, and it's not really good writing necessarily. But it's such a fun movie that took me on such a ride and just made me feel like a kid again watching an action movie, which doesn't happen often anymore. And this movie gave me that I'm a kid again feeling watching a horror movie, a horror action movie, I guess. And I was just so thrilled to be feeling that giddy and that like what they went there, all those things where I wasn't in my cynical. It was weird. I was both. It was like the state of being two things at once. I was hyper cynical about, oh God, they just said that throwback line. Oh God, why are they bringing Ian Holm back from the dead? Also, I'm a kid again, and I'm not cynical at all because this is freaking awesome. And I want to see it again because it was so much fun for me. So it's very strange. I guess I'm on board with what the hell do we do with this thing? All at once, I was angry at the movie for doing certain things and also just giddy with delight.
Yeah.
I have a gut reaction test for us really quick since none of us know how we feel, but I like what you said there just there, Alex.
Yeah.
If you want to see it again, raise your hand.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I want to see every Alien movie again. Because
That's all of us.
That's
right?
4 for 4.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to see it again. So good work, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to see the bad Alien movies again, too.
Oh, me too.
That is
So,
where
like-
I've seen Prometheus so many times for like the amount that
Yeah, I actually could never see Prometheus again and be okay.
And I will say, like, even the thing that made me mad was impressive in a way of like, I'm going to somehow in this rapid fire roller coaster ride of a movie attempt to tie together all these disparate parts of this franchise that even Ridley Scott didn't tie together at all for me. Like in no way did I ever feel satisfied with the Alien Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Aliens universe all really making sense together. And this movie, maybe it's not like good, but it attempted to do so in a kind of a rushed fashion. And paid off elements from all those parts of the franchise within a single movie. So should you have done that? I don't know, but they went for that and they did it. And I don't know, it's very impressive to me.
It's possible it's the most cohesive Alien movie in 40 years. Like in terms of just like having at least some solid sense of what it is and just being that. But I also don't know if I agree with that because I still don't know what my brain is.
Dots were explicitly connected that had never been connected before. That maybe you don't want that, but it was kind of cool.
But dots from different genres of movies. Because the Alien franchise spans a variety of genres, do you really want to mishmash them by connecting all of these dots? And not just mishmash the sort of plot, like expositional story world dots, but also you're kind of mashing all the tones together and the ideas together. And it does really just strike out in all, and by that I mean like, it just goes for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It goes for it all. Yeah.
It goes for it all, man.
Right.
Which is impressive.
Yep.
And I'll say, like, also, we don't need any more Alien movies. So if you are going to make an Alien requel, sequel, there's another word for it of like being in between two movies.
Midquel.
Midquel.
Yeah. If you're going to make another installment in this franchise, it's kind of like you said, Michael, like, why not just try stuff now? Or we've had enough of these movies. Sure, make one that tries to tie together Prometheus and Alien and Aliens in a coherent way, and let's see what happens. You know, I'm so like not worried about needing more good Alien movies. I'm kind of excited that they're swinging for things versus you could have done just like, we'll just do Alien again, like just like Ridley Scott made it, you know, but with like these younger kids, and like play it safe in a way of like, we're going to be very classic and keep it simple. And I was impressed with how they both went for that aesthetic and yet, went like Fast and the Furious on us with just how wild.
Yeah. The image that kind of keeps coming into my brain is if like there's like a board and there's a nail in the center, and like that's what this movie is. And then around that board are a bunch of like other nails. It's like all the other movies. And this movie is like going to put a rubber band and stretch and tie each one of those. Like this nail will be connected to all of them. And
it's like
it
barely,
almost
it's like barely
breaks,
holding it.
Right. Like it's just there, but it just like rams it through with like a sheer force of will. And like something about that propulsive, just momentum, like made it work for me. Like ambitious, and then rocket boost 1,000% and make it happen. And somehow it created this firework of a movie that maybe is deeply flawed in lots of ways, but is like a hell of a fun watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things going on there, which is there's the sort of meta of it all, which you guys are talking about, which is like, let's try to take these very different movies in the past and start kind of pulling them together a little bit and trying to connect them a little. I think it was when Marcus and McFeely were writing Infinity War and Endgame, they were like, we want to take things from Age of Ultron and Thor: The Dark World and like put them into the movie to like make them feel like they were more connected than they were if you just forget about those movies. And that's interesting. But then there's the Prometheus problem we've talked about, which is like too many ideas in your movie, which I think that's kind of the stretching you were just talking about, Michael, where it's kind of like, at what point are we like, okay, but if you're trying to bring in every movie from, as you were saying, Trisha, from every genre, then at some point, what's going on? Like there's just too many things I'm holding in my head, which I think this movie gets away with because it's a very simple plot. But then there's just these like ideas all over the place that it's kind of toying with for a little, and then it's like, but then we're going to leave that and then we'll move on to the next thing, as opposed to like Prometheus, which is trying to hold them kind of all at once, right? And then there's we're literally going to do scenes and ideas from those movies. And I think that's the difference, right? It's one thing to say this idea from Prometheus over here and this idea from Aliens over here, we're going to tie them together and we're going to kind of explain how they both fit into this world. And then we're just going to do that same scene again, or that same line again, or that same whatever again. And that's when it starts to feel like, now I don't feel like I'm watching a new installment in this universe. I feel like I'm watching someone play with their toys and saying like, look, remember when this person said this? Remember when this thing happened? Look at it.
It's interesting because I for sure there are lines, and I think, Rook/Ash says lines as well that are just verbatim. But I don't recall there being any like scenes, like sequences that were just total ripoffs. I did feel like the movie was good at remixing all these elements into kind of novel scenarios and sequences.
Okay, first of all,
am I forgetting stuff? I might be forgetting stuff.
Rook in general, like we did it with Ash, we did it in Alien 3 with Bishop. They'll like, hey, the android, we're going to get it back to life and we're going to talk to it. And we're going to get like that scene has already been done twice before. The alien baby was done in Alien Resurrection. It was horrible. And then they kill it by the acid hole going out the ship. Like the entire finale of the movie was just like, what if we remake the finale of Alien Resurrection?
Yeah, you always have to blow it out the airlock. Like that's an important thing to do.
Not the airlock, a hole in the wall. Yeah, like from the blood. And then like her, getting into the thing and getting into the suit so that she can survive. Just that's the end of Alien. It just felt like I've seen these movies a lot, and it just felt like I was constantly in the second half of the movie just being like, "Yep, you're just doing that thing again." And I think that was the thing that started to really just make me feel like, why am I bored watching a movie I've never seen before? Because it feels like I just watched it the other day.
Well, yeah, so I want to rewind to the beginning of the movie and maybe try to track through the different phases of the movie, because it does shift in lots of ways, tone and genre, and kind of arrives at that kind of fun free-for-all place by the end. But I really like that in the beginning of the movie, as we were saying earlier, it's starting to kind of get back to the roots of Alien. So one of the things we talked about in Prometheus that we called out is like, too many people. I can't keep track of all these people. This is a ship full of red shirts and I don't care about any of them. And so I appreciated that it was, here's a small group of people. You can, in theory, tell them all apart and you know who they are. But here again, it's this weird thing where this movie, on one hand, it did it great some of the time and not as great the other part of the time. So like we talked about, Rain and Andy, I think, are really clearly established. We see them on the colony. There's really good like environmental storytelling. I really like how, they're walking and talking and we're sort of getting to learn about them. And they're kind of done in these like wide tracking shots where it's about the environment also. Like you're seeing the context in which they're saying those lines, and like that is infusing it with meaning. And even just that idea, I really respected of, a studio's going to pay for an expensive wide visual effects shot for a dialogue scene. Like this isn't an action scene. This is just scene setting while they're walking through this crazy environment. So I really liked that, of committing to a small group of people and letting us get to know some of them really well. Some of the character development for the other people, I feel like, was not as strong. And that's where it started to feel a little bit Prometheus to me, or a little bit of like the B-horror movie in not great ways, where it's sort of like these are two-dimensional maybe characters, where it's like he's the cousin, he's angry, there's a reason his mom was killed by an android, so he's a dick now. And there's the other girl, she's pregnant, that's her character.
It's her whole thing.
And so it was this weird thing where, again, I really liked, I was like, oh yeah, you're going toward a thing that I think is great, but also it's a little bumpy along the way.
Yeah. I was missing, so in the original Alien, we've talked about how the characters, the supporting cast in that movie is actually, we know not very much about them, but they're like the first scene of the movie essentially is like they all wake up from the pods and then they're like eating together, right, in the cafeteria. And we're kind of seeing how they play off of each other and who's like buddies with who and who has like beef with who, or like what everybody cares about. This guy just wants his bonus. This other guy just wants to do this thing, right? So like we have this big group dynamic scene where we kind of get to like them and know them as a group. And this movie has this added layer that I think is really interesting, where these people used to be a group and then they're not a group anymore, presumably because Rain and her ex split up, right? And now like a bunch of like his cousin and his sister are still friends with him. And then like Andy is over here. And so the group kind of like split in two. But I do miss, like, it would be nice to get a scene where they're on board the ship and like they're just kind of hanging out again, right? Like where they're kind of just talking and teasing each other and like basically getting back into whatever rhythm that they probably used to have, right? Like when they were all a group, because I think that is really interesting. You have this young cast, everybody in Alien is really jaded, right? They're these blue collar workers. They're these truck drivers in space. These are also blue collar kids. It would be fun to see them, not just in their like hardened, we're just desperate people who want to go steal some stuff, but like really explore the fact that they're young and they used to be a tight-knit group and a community. And then that was fractured by like this breakup and this time. And I don't even know why they split up. Why didn't the movie tell me that? Like, I don't think
I even understood that they were together. Like everything you've said is like a lot more than I got.
How long ago did they break up? How long has it been since they've seen each other? Like, how awkward is it? Is it like, I see you every day, but I can't talk to you awkward? Or I don't know. I wish that there was a more robust filling in of the backstory and then also who they are when they are together as a group. And it should be, if you really want me to care about the tertiary characters, that scene, you should create that scene where they're all a group together and hanging out. And you should make it really awesome, like really lovely, like a breath of fresh air for all of those characters, where we start to really go like, oh, actually, maybe they can pull it off. And maybe they can trust each other, and maybe they're a group again, and maybe it can all work out. Because there should be something like pure and what's the word that I'm looking for? Just really like good about them working together as a group.
Right.
And if you could sell that, then you don't need to do complicated backstory work for each of the individuals. Just sell me the group. And I feel like that would go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some tell instead of showing going on here, in the first act of this movie, where one, their situation on the planet we don't really see. We just hear them talk about like, hey, we really have to get off this planet. And I'm like, okay, I guess you do, but I don't really know that because I'm just hearing you talk about it. And then some of the backstory stuff and some of the relationship stuff is just sort of like, it's just kind of there in small little moments, or it's there in, hey, do you know what happened to that person's family? Let's talk about it kind of thing, right? Not that we need to see that, but there's a lot of just, that thing. And I think talking about Alien as you were, Trisha, like, I don't, it's like until Alien 3 that we get like a backstory for anybody at all, like in these movies, right? Like it's just, but we know so much about the characters in Alien in terms of just who they are as people. We don't know where they came from. We don't know who their family is. We don't know a thing about them. We don't know Ripley's first name, but we know in that dinner scene what kind of people they are, who are the people who care about this, who are the people who care about this, and all that. And I agree with you that I wanted to see more of that with these characters and actually get a sense of when you come on screen, I'm like, right, that's the guy who I saw do that little character thing, or who I know cares more about X than Y, even though everyone else has been telling him that the other, whatever, It was almost like I wanted more backstory, like an Alien 3 kind of character drama thing that was happening there, or none at all. And just like, here are some people who know each other anyway. They're on a ship.
Yeah, to be clear, I wasn't hoping for like a lot of detailed exposition about like, we've been here for 3 years and we split up this reason. But
because you wouldn't need that if you then saw them be the characters they are.
Just show me who they are today, right now, together.
Right.
And it can trade on a familiar dynamic because they already all know each other, right? In the same way that those truck drivers in space and Alien all know each other already. So there's familiarity there. There's a rhythm there. There's a flow to how they operate as a unit. Right. And you could give me that in this movie.
Twister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and, in the original Alien, they're a crew. So, like, everybody's here to do a thing. And so they're all sort of important in just a mechanical way, too. Like, these people are the engineers. This guy's the captain. This person's the fly person, whatever it is. And there's kind of that with this one, but not nearly as clearly rendered. And so, like, when people start dying, I'm not really sure what that affects in terms, like, if the main goal is just get everyone to this planet, then, okay, it sucks that people are dead. But when, what's her name? Navarro gets face hugged, and I'm like, oh, she was flying the ship. Now they don't have a ship flyer. That's bad. But then there are ways around that also. But like that kind of
autopilot, Michael.
Right, autopilot. But like that kind of thing where every character is necessary to your ultimate goal is also important to set up. And that was not set up. It felt like pretty much everyone was superfluous. It was just like who will survive
Andy.
or not.
Using the Andy to open doors.
Right, yeah.
Much. Yeah.
And like that was a weird, they have is it Tyler or Bjorn? Bjorn's the kind of asshole.
Yeah.
And like that was like tension and conflict is like good and cool, but also your whole plan rides on Andy doing this thing for you. Maybe like be more subtle, like have a third dimension with your character, have some kind of struggle there. And so that's where there was just those characters being kind of ill-defined was frustrating because some of it I feel like was really, really well defined.
It feels to me like there's this just new pattern I'm noticing, and it seems like it especially comes to the fore in these legacy sequel movies where there is so much to pack in if you have to honor every movie that came before and outdo all of them at the same time and bring it forward into our modern expectations of pacing and and so you kind of don't have room for a kind of strangely slow slice of life scene of people eating dinner and talking over each other for like a good few minutes, so there's no space in these movies to have things like unfold naturally. And so everything has to be a shortcut. So it has to be like, no, there's a guy who hates androids and he's just like he really hates androids. And the whole time he's really hating this guy because that's all the time we have. So like, you better come through in these few shots. And this girl's got to be pregnant for later. So like, she's pregnant, end of story. And it feels like there's just so many requirements in these movies that there's no space for scenes that could unfold in like a more naturalistic or subtle way.
But that's kind of what's interesting to me about this movie is that I felt like this movie did have space. Like it was pulling off another thing that I liked about the first Alien that we've talked about. You know, in the original Alien, you don't see the chest burster. The alien doesn't come out until the midpoint, right? It's one of the most famous midpoints ever. And there's escalation. You see the face hugger, they go down to the planet, but it's this very slow, gradual build. And this movie had a surprising amount of restraint. Like the face huggers don't escape on the ship. I would guess that's about 40 minutes in, somewhere in there, which is pretty late, I think, for a legacy sequel. We're talking about even an Alien 3, this sort of pressure that you might feel making a sequel to a franchise called Alien. It's like, well, we gotta have the alien in there. Like, you can't make a Jurassic Park sequel and then save dinosaurs for halfway through again after the first one. Like, people want to see dinosaurs. And I feel like this movie did a surprisingly good job of being disciplined and restrained and saving the alien breakout for pretty late. And in doing so, made space where I feel like they could have had some slice of life stuff, but kind of instead chose to do other exposition-y mechanical setup stuff.
You could have had an efficient scene that did a lot of work at once. But we had a lot of short scenes that do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was about to say, which is that what you just mentioned earlier, Michael, was that if you'd just given them all jobs, like specific jobs that they need to do, then they can do the expository work while they are doing this like series of jobs to get into this station, right? And it can do the character work while they're doing this. A simple solve would have been, and I think this was maybe kind of in there, but again, there was a lot of dialogue that I was having trouble hearing. But like, if those three, like Rain's ex-boyfriend and his cousin and his sister and Navarro, so let's say the four of them, if they are already a crew of some kind, right? They are workers. They're blue collar workers. We're told that they like were up in space, which is how they noticed this like ship and they like want to break into it. Just tell me what it is that they all do and then show me them doing their jobs on the ship again when they take them up into space, and give them a rapport and give them, a shorthand and a rhythm to the way that they communicate with each other. And this is another thing that I was missing. If Kaylee Spaney's character, Rain, has some skills of her own, other than the one skill I know she has, which is working with androids, which is cool. That's a cool skill to have. She knows how to work with androids. Nobody else does. What else can she do? What else is she good at? What's her background, right? Like we hear she works in a mine. What does she do in a mine? Does it give her skills with tools or weapons? Is she like particularly tough? Can she throw a punch? Can she shoot a gun? I find out later she can't shoot a gun. That's fine. But like, I don't know what she can do. And again, the simple utility of giving everybody a skill. I feel like I've talked about this before, but just give everybody a skill. And then the character work naturally emerges, because characterization is skills. It's not just background. It's like the way your brain works and your value system. And that can be summed up in the job that you have, right? If you tell me somebody is a scientist, well, that's a job. But I can infer something about their brain and their value system and who they are as a person, probably, right? Obviously, scientist is a wide variety of things.
Unless you're watching Prometheus, and then all your assumptions about scientists
are
not valid.
Well, but I'm just saying, as a character type, right? If you tell me somebody is insert job here, then with some specificity where I see what the job entails, I sort of understand the kind of person who would be drawn to this job and who would be good at it. Then that goes a long way toward helping me like get that in itself is a shortcut to a character.
Yeah, well, and so it's interesting also. So I kind of want to get into the sort of the genre shifting that it starts to do. Mm-hmm. So they get onto the spaceship. Bjorn and Tyler are trapped in the room with Andy, and now there's a bunch of face huggers. And like, that was pretty cool seeing that like come to life. Now there's like, oh my God, now there's face huggers everywhere and action and running. And so it sort of started to get like action movie-y when it was just like, now there's a bunch of them, go, go, go. And one of the shifts that happened that felt like a downshift, that was like, if I was leaning forward in my seat up to this point, I sort of was like, was when it arrived at Navarro and Kay are on the other side of the station. We got to get to them, but we have to go through this room of face huggers. Apparently face huggers see by temperature. And so your job is to walk through here and not like change your temperature. And like, that's an interesting premise for, you know, a scene or a sequence. But whereas in the first part of the movie, it felt like things were methodical. I understood the work that people had to do to get from one place to another. They make us watch them crawl through the claustrophobic space and start getting into the room. There's the gravity stuff. I liked seeing the obstacle one after another that made it feel like, oh man, you got in, and I feel like you really had to overcome some stuff to get there, because I saw it kind of happen in a real time. And then I feel like it started to do a little bit of like kind of modern horror movie day stuff, where it's like, here's the new rule for the next 2-minute scene. I'm going to list all these things you can't do. If you're going to get chills and goosebumps, that's how you know it's not going to work. Like it suddenly was just like, now we're in this section. We're going to do this gimmick for a little bit. And like, it's a fun gimmick, but it felt different than the restrained, methodical building up. And that's where, for me, I was sort of like, wait, so where are we going now? And there were kind of several sequences throughout the movie where those shifts between slow horror build-up suspense to more action movie, or almost like heisty, we gotta navigate this thing without activating the people, felt like less engaging to me. And so that was when I started to have some of that whiplash. And then I think that leads into the Rook Ash revelation, or is that after that? The middle also gets kind of confusing. One of my
I don't remember the order of things in this movie up until kind of like the last sequences.
Well, Rook is the person, they activate him because Navarro has a face hugger on her face. So it's before that.
Okay, right.
Because he's the body that's there early on next to the acid hole.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And like, even through that, I liked the sort of the clear predicament of, you know, some of us are locked in this room. Andy doesn't have the permissions to override the door. So here's a cool solution that Rain's going to figure out to give him these like extra permissions. And then that levels up Andy and gives him a cool character twist. It solves the problem, but it creates new problems. Like, all of that felt really good. And then I feel like we started to get into some of that fan service of, oh, look, it's literally Ian Holm. He's back. And he still has his sort of super objective. And now he's manipulating Andy. But I don't know about you guys. I completely lost track of what was Rook actually wanting Andy to do. What was he fighting for? Like, not until toward the end was I like, okay, I think he just wants to get this black goo out.
It's to get the super black goo to Weyland-Yutani that they extracted from the aliens. Yeah.
But I feel like it creates this weird thing where now Andy's like an antagonist, maybe, which is interesting. But I also don't understand if he's on Team Antagonist. I don't really know what Team Antagonist is fighting for. And so they're sort of on one hand being like, I should be afraid of Andy, who's the only person helping these people move forward at the same time. And it gets kind of muddy in there for me.
Yeah, I do wonder too, it is a cool idea to have that actor who plays Andy essentially play two characters, right? Obviously that's like Alien Covenant thing. And I do overall like the choice. And I think he does a wonderful job with it. The performance is really great. And I find it compelling. But if you look at this movie thematically, the like kind of thematic moments that I was able to track were about like what makes us better than the corporation, right? Like what should humans actually do and be? What makes us compassionate, good people as opposed to evil corporation? And that's kind of wrapped up in the question of like, is Andy real? What does it mean to be real, right? Like, is he more of a real person when he is, essentially a person who like gets bullied and doesn't fit in at the beginning of the movie? Is he still more of a person then because he has his directive is one of care and protection? Is that more human than when he is, being this corporate stooge who's willing to leave people behind? And it is interesting that like they kind of say the theme at one point where she's like staring at him and she's like, I can't believe you did that, when he doesn't let what's her face through the door and she gets snatched up by the alien. She's fine though, but
right.
She gets snatched up by the alien and she's like, how could you do that? And he's like, what? Leave someone behind? And she was like,
right.
Okay. So that's really what it is, I guess. And then of course that's her climactic choice, right? Is she puts the pregnant girl on the elevator and she goes back to get Andy because she can't leave Andy behind. So apparently what it means to be human and good is never leaving anyone behind. But it just lacks a bit of nuance, I think, if you can kind of crystallize it that way. And I feel like if there were more debate about it or more like beats along the journey, it would help that feel a little bit more interesting and it would just help that feel like a meatier theme that we could kind of dig into.
Yeah, I don't know that I needed to be more nuanced, but I needed it to be more supported. Like there was not support frames around it. It was nice that it was...
Or debated even, like...
Right, yeah. And like it was nice that it was there and that it is like Rain's arc is about that. And when she chose to go back to Andy, I was like, well, this is a dumb choice of yours, but like there's meaning behind it at least. Sure. Okay, cool. And there was enough in this movie that I was having those thoughts of like, what does it mean to be human? Is Andy the most human of all because he has like the traits that we want to see in humans about being empathetic and blah blah blah, and then we see that be snatched away. Like those things are all there and being kind of like operated on and around. It would have been cool if any of the other characters fed into that in any kind of meaningful way.
But then again, this is an alien movie. As we were pulling apart the character web earlier, I was like, but then again, this is an alien movie.
They're there
and
to
like,
die.
what do people come to this for, right? And I think this is a genuine question that we've talked about a little bit with Sequel Summer. What do you come to movies for, and sequels especially for, right? Like people who want to buy a ticket to an alien movie, truly what are they here for? Not us. We're broken. But what are most people wanting to see? And, Alien, it's literally only been out a day at the time of this recording. And it had a great day yesterday at the box office. It's probably going to have a really great opening weekend. But it does just make me, I don't know, I kind of want to like think about this for a while because, what puts butts in seats about certain kinds of sequels and about this franchise, about some of the other franchises we've talked about this summer. This one is like 4-quadrant alien movie, I guess, if you want to talk about the various quadrants being the various entries into the franchise. It definitely hits all of them. And it seems like it's really trying hard not to stay in a narrow lane. It's trying to be all the alien movies it can be at one time. And it might succeed, right? Like it might succeed for that reason, as we've already said.
And I will say, based on that, like I am looking forward to potentially a sequel to this. Because I think that sometimes you get a first movie like a Force Awakens, where they're just like, hey, we have to remind everyone of everything. Like we have to do all the things that they liked, so let's do it all, right? And then it's like, cool, but then what, right? And I feel like what's your actual original idea that you can now do after this? So I hope that we get an alien Remus or Romuli or whatever, because I would like to see Fede Alvarez, who like weirdly is the reboot director. He did Evil Dead, Girl in the Spider's Web, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Alien Romulus. The only other movie of his I've seen is Don't Breathe, which I thought was really directed in a really fun way, and then went kind of off the rails in a way that I didn't mind in the third act. So this feels appropriate. But I would love to see what this team does with this idea, not being so, whether it was a studio note or whether it was their idea, to be so shoehorned in. Let's try to like bring everything together. It's just like, cool. Now what do you want to do yourself for a future, alien movie?
Yeah, and I think the central relationship, the central two characters are interesting enough, and I want them to be fleshed out more. I would like to see Rain and Andy in a sequel and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and so maybe just to get to the end, to talk about the insane...
Oh, yeah.
Final...
The birth.
Yeah.
God.
From the first Alien had this kind of bonus mini act, right, where you think the movie's over and Sigourney Weaver is on the escape shuttle, and it's like, okay, everything's fine, except no, the alien's on there with her. And so it's like, oh no, reset, like mini boss battle now, where it's just you and the thing and the tiny thing. Go. And so there's this a little bit of like expecting that, because we're in an alien movie, there's got to be something. But I was having trouble like putting my finger on what that was going to be like throughout the movie. And part of that is, I think, because they're playing a little bit fast and loose, as you alluded to, Trisha, of like, what does it mean for someone to be taken by the alien? Maybe it means they're fine and can be rescued still, or maybe it means they're dead. And like the phases of the alien, like what it's trying to do with the people, was a little bit confusing and complicated.
There's that line where it's like, she's lost a lot of blood. That's probably why it didn't kill her. Or like, that's
it's
probably...
kind of like it wasn't a good enough host, maybe, for the facehugger.
Right.
It was a weird line where I was just like, whoa, we really brushed past it.
There was like a lot of like trying to fill in the lore, both around Prometheus stuff, but also like showing us phases that I don't think we've seen before of like going from little alien to big alien. Like it came out of like a really big egg sac kind of thing on the wall.
Did the little alien create a huge egg sac, and that's how the big alien came out? Like,
well, it also shed, right? Like we saw that. It
I also feel like
the
every alien movie kind of makes up its own lore for how things get from here to there. Like Alien 3 is just, it comes out of the ox or the dog, and it's a dog alien.
Shrug.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's a lot of bending over backwards and kind of obfuscating a little bit of it that I think was sort of a distraction, so you don't think about it too much. But anyway, we managed to get there. So we have the pregnant woman, and also like if you're pregnant in an alien movie, like
you're screwed.
You're screwed. Like,
if
what
you're
do you think?
pregnant in any movie, it's like Chekhov's pregnant lady. You're like, okay.
Yeah. But especially an alien movie, it's like something really weird is going to happen with your pregnancy.
Yeah. But I feel like they've managed to do enough dizzying confusion of like the greatest hits, and there's a million aliens now, like we're in Aliens, and now we're in an elevator shaft, we're doing this thing.
The acid blood 0G scene, like there were new things in this movie that I thought were clever remixes of existing puzzle pieces of the franchise.
But would it stay together like that? No, it would be all over the
It's goofy.
place.
Yeah, that was another scene, like the face hugger, like, the don't be too hot while moving through this thing. Like, it's a cool premise that then was kind of executed in a rushed movie way instead of like a methodical film way. And I was like frustrated. I was both at one time like, oh, that's clever, that's fun. But also like, I don't believe any of this is happening either.
Right.
Like, it's just kind of candy that's happening. But then we get to...
A pod of some sort is ejected. from the pregnant woman
Uh-huh.
in a bloody, horrible way.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's just a normal baby inside of it at first. It's what it looks like.
It clearly looks human.
When it cracks open, it's just like, okay, normal fetus.
Like, I will give the movie credit for whatever obfuscation tricking my brain into not thinking about it. As soon as it settled and I was like, oh no, this is the ride I'm on. Like, I didn't mean to get on this roller coaster.
I didn't
like,
sign
can
up
I
for
get off of this
ride? Yeah. And that's part of what was kind of what I was like really impressed by was it did that like sickening thing that alien movies can pull off, which is I did not sign up for this. What the hell is this? And it just went all the way with that.
Yeah. And it freaked me out and it disturbed me until they kept showing it too much. And I feel like if they had like restrained and held back a little bit, because the first reveal, as we were talking about earlier in the episode, where there was laughter, I read that as nervous laughter. I was laughing nervously because it was very disturbing and weird.
It's like, dear God, they're doing this? What is this?
Right. And even like the build up to it, where it's you understand that the little alien or the little human has escaped, and now there's like claw marks on the walls. Like, first
it's
of all,
it's already got that big in like 2 seconds.
Right. It doesn't make any sense, but like your brain, your imagination starts going. Like, all of that I feel like was doing what it needed to do. But after like the 10th shot of the weird engineer face on it.
They committed to the engineer face.
The engineer bit.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's kind of undid it a little bit for me there.
Right. Yeah, and I think unfortunately for me, it was just reminding me of other movies I didn't like. So it was reminding me of the end of Alien Resurrection, as I've talked about, where it's like, yeah, we did the hybrid baby, we did like a Ripley clone, thing that looks basically not like that, but a sort of like, what's a human alien hybrid look like? So like, yeah, we did that. The Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead movie, there's a pregnant woman and then she's giving birth, and I think it's like a still birth, so then it becomes a zombie, and it's awful. And I was
Zack
just like,
Snyder.
The first 10 minutes of that movie is the last time I liked a Zack Snyder movie. 2004. And Alex, Men, the finale of that movie came to mind, know. So I was just like, unfortunately, I was just like, you're reminding me of a bunch of other movies I've seen do something like this that was always not good. And yeah, so like the handprints and everything, I was just kind of like, I just was like face palming the whole time. And then, as I mentioned at the top, like, then it was kind of awesome. Like there was something about it where it was like, it was so horrifying and so turning it to 11. And I've mentioned I love when a movie can arrest me emotionally, whether it's a horror movie or, a romantic movie, whatever it is. And where she's like hanging out of the ship and then she's like going to go back in and then its face is just like right there and like screaming. I was just like, oh yes, you did it. You did the thing I want from horror movies that no horror movie ever does anymore, which is just like make me feel chills and like just in that space for a while, So it was this weird, again, there's so much yes, but also no, no, but also yes, I guess I should say, in this movie where I was like, I hate that you did this thing, but also the way that you did it ended up kind of paying off and kind of being great. But then also I still hate that you did it in retrospect, right? So it's complicated.
There's a real confidence and a skill in the execution of the ideas that we don't like.
Right.
So it's like, I don't like that you did this thing, but like you're doing it really well. And I can't say this is not being done with a lot of filmmaking skill.
Yeah. Prowess.
I'm gonna agree, but also not, because
exactly.
It's the theme of this episode.
Yeah. Stay with me. I think for me, there was like an execution issue with making it big at the end of the day. Like, I think that the thing that disturbed me most about the idea is that it's a child, right? And I think it's a horror movie staple, like a malevolent child entity is kind of a thing we're very familiar with from horror. But I've never seen it in an alien movie necessarily. Brian has. I don't remember Alien Resurrection very much.
Yeah, it's all a blur to me. There's basketball at one point.
Winona Ryder. That's what I've got from
Sigourney
Alien
Weaver
Resurrection.
throws a basketball over the back of her head and she actually makes it. And she says, like, other than her having a child, it's the best thing she's ever done in her life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver basketball scenes in sci-fi
movies. Yeah. Sorry, Trisha.
Always memorable.
It's okay. Anyway, for me, when I saw that it was huge, that it was like full-grown alien size, I had like a logical question about how it got that big from being basically a human-looking baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also there was just like it kind of lost not all of its disturbing quality to me, but sort of the most disturbing textural parts of the idea to me. Because it became like a full-grown thing that you can fight and kill very quickly in my mind. Like, I was like, oh, just fight it and kill it. It's a bad full-grown thing. But if there were some like, it's a child, it's like a juvenile, maybe it's half human, maybe you can't just fight it and kill it. Maybe there's something there within it that, not that it can be saved, but that it gives you pause when you look at it. So I just wonder if it was like, maybe, what if it looked even exactly the same way, but on a slightly smaller scale, right? Like, that it was more normal human-sized.
Trisha's the one making the argument of like, this should have been more disturbing. It should have been like a child. It should have
been a literal child.
I don't know that I could have handled that. I would have passed out.
Well, listen, though. It's really, here's the thing. So alien movies trade in this like psychosexual horror, right? Like there's a very sexual component to the horror of Alien. This is not news. And body horror, obviously. And there's that element is being traded on in this movie, very much so, as well as like the body horror of pregnancy, birth, and breastfeeding. And the breastfeeding part is really wild to me because there are images of breastfeeding throughout the movie because of the Romulus and Remus part of the myth, where you see the twin babies like being fed by a wolf mother, right? And so that's a body horror thing that I've never seen in an alien movie before. And they put it in this movie with the alien hybrid thing, but didn't have the courage to show it completely because it's too weird.
Trisha wanted the alien baby hybrid to suck on the teat of the mother.
It does.
Does it? Well, it approaches her.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't remember it doing that specifically. Well, I mean, you see the like little
Strap
mouth.
in,
I thought it was eat.
Strap in, everybody. Yes.
Now I really got to see this movie again.
Wow. Here's the thing. When a mother with a newborn hears her baby cry, gentlemen, stay with me. Okay. When a mother with a newborn hears her baby cry, it activates like a breastfeeding instinct. And you immediately begin producing milk for the infant. It is wild. It is mammalian and weird. And in this movie, the like human hybrid baby cries. The woman who's just given birth to this reaches into her shirt and pulls out like goo, basically. And is like, what the hell is this?
That's right.
Yes. So she's clearly making whatever food it needs with her body, okay, in this like weird biological way. And then it approaches her and yes, actually breastfeeds. It is nuts. But it's so out there, they didn't really show it. Right. And you are all men who don't have children.
And it's the 97th idea in this movie. So,
that too.
Yeah.
But the images are there throughout. There's even like a weird scene earlier with a piece of art where there's like an infant breastfeeding on like a dead mother from like a scene of the plague.
Like Renaissance
kind of thing.
Again, the body horror images are there. But you can't really do it with something that on the scale of like a full-grown alien thing, right? It makes more logical sense if it looks more like a child.
Right, we may have put it together what was happening in that scene if it was a more baby-looking alien going towards the breast.
Right. And that is a profoundly disturbing idea, but it seemed like a studio executive was like, hang on. If you do it, this is literally the only thing anybody will remember about this movie. Yeah. But like, wouldn't it maybe have been kind of awesome or just like, if you're going to really swing for it, I don't know, maybe just really swing for it.
Is that like NC-17 territory? Like breastfeeding, like monster.
Anyway.
If you had told me at the beginning of the season what we'd be discussing in the finale.
Yep, here we are.
Yeah.
It was honestly the thing I wanted to say to you guys most when we walked out of the theater, and I was like, I'm going to save it.
Trisha's like, been there.
And here we go.
Oh, guys, listen. For listeners that might not know, I have 2 children, and wowzas, the body horror is real.
Alien Romulus.
All right. Well, why don't we go around and say what lessons we're going to take away?
I have so many reasons why.
Alien Romulus. Brian, do you want to kick us off?
Oh, no. I mean, I keep thinking about this. Alex, you said fanfic, and that's the word that I was saying driving home with my partner. And I'm remembering, because you talked about the, there's so many things we have to do in a movie like this. And I think you're correct that they think there's so many things we have to do, but I disagree that there are so many things we have to do. Right. I'm thinking about the Fallout TV show, which was really successful. And me as a big fan of the franchise was going, wait a minute, they didn't even have this creature. They didn't even have this kind of character. Like, there are huge things from the franchise that they just didn't do in the first season. And I thought, oh, of course they're going to. They're going to have to go through the checklist. And they're like, nope, we're good. They could have afforded to do it. They could have done it. And they're just like, we're saving it. Like, thank you. Thank you for not trying to just hit all these check boxes, right? I weirdly had this. I'm going to do one of my weird analogies again. Picture like you go on a first date and you get sushi with someone, right? You have a nice time. Then your second date, you come over and we're going to watch Sleepless in Seattle. Great. And then they show up and they're like, I brought sushi. Remember the last time? You're like, oh, that's a little weird, but it's kind of cute, I guess. And then the third time you go on a hike and they're like, I brought sushi to eat while we hike. And then I downloaded Sleepless in Seattle on my phone so we can watch it while we hike. That's around the point where you're going to be like, I gotta go. And I feel like that's what sequels are, right? Is they're trying to do it's the sandwich with too many ingredients that we talked about in the Star Wars episode, right? It's the sort of like, hey, remember this, remember that, and it's like, no, let the third date be the third date. Let it be its own thing. You can talk about something that happened, maybe like on the 6th date, hey, I bought you a little Space Needle because Sleepless in Seattle was the first movie you watched. Like, oh, that's kind of cute. Like, you just did a little reference back to an earlier thing, right? You didn't completely force this thing, like back into the conversation or whatever. We mentioned in the Star Wars episode, the Star Wars sequels episode, like once a franchise comes out of the creator's hand and goes into someone else's, then they're just kind of doing high budget fan fiction, right? Now, Alien is a weird franchise where it immediately went into someone else's hand and then it went back into Ridley, so it's whatever. But it's like the 2187 thing from Force Awakens where Finn's number is also Leia's cell number. It's like, now I'm watching the movie thinking about J.J. Abrams being like, I'm going to make the number be this, that I'm not feeling like I am watching a new chapter in this thing anymore. I feel like I'm watching a filmmaker sitting at a desk being like, I'm going to do this reference, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And that's how the sort of middle of Alien Romulus felt to me, was this sort of, I'm picturing the writers sitting at a desk coming up with how to shove all these ideas in, rather than feel like I am immersed in this alien universe watching the next thing, the next chapter in this, right? Say what you will about Prometheus, say what you will about the Star Wars prequels, they were trying to do new ideas. They were trying to say, like, what else is there here, right? Because that was the original creator being like, I already did that thing, so what's next in that conversation? The execution is a different story, but the idea to kind of do something different. So I think, like, normally I try to make my lessons be something you can take away, as a filmmaker. But statistically speaking, most of us listening and here will direct a blockbuster sequel at some point, because there's just so many that, like, I think we all will. So take that with you. And then speaking of Ridley Scott sequels, Blade Runner 2049, I keep coming back to as, like, I think the perfect blend of these high level thematic checklist things, right? It's like we have a detective who's hunting down replicants. We have this question about what does it mean to be human or to be a person, to be sentient, whatever. We have these textural things, but then it feels like it's this completely brand new movie that exists on its own terms, essentially, right? It is the second movie in a franchise and not the seventh or ninth, depending on if you count Alien vs. Predator. So obviously making an Alien movie now, there's a lot more baggage and a lot more to do, you know, so it's not a fair one-to-one comparison. But I think about when we talk about the checklist, I think there's the literal checklist of like, we're going to do that scene again. We're going to do that moment again. We're going to have an android who's like, nope, I got to do the thing for the company. So I don't care if I sacrifice a life. It's like, yeah, but we saw that so many times already. Right. And then there's the high level thematic thing, right? The containment idea, the sort of sexual things that you were talking about, Trisha, the body horror, the again, the corporation versus, like there are a lot of thematic, interesting things in the Alien franchise that I think can be explored more. And then when you're just like, but let's actually just do the scene again, or this exact idea again, that's when it starts to feel again like that fan fiction thing to me, where I feel like I'm just watching somebody. I'm just watching somebody be like, how can I do the thing we already did, but my way, and not like a new exciting way, just with my direction. I'm going to point the camera on this side instead of this side or whatever. Right. So part of why I feel very complicated about this movie, and I don't know how that's a lesson, but that's the thing that I was thinking about the most as I walked away from Alien Romulus.
Yeah. The crystallized moment in the movie for me, we've already talked about, is the line, the "get away from her, you bitch," where I was like, did he see aliens? Has he seen that movie?
Right.
And I feel like it's when characters feel like they've seen the movie franchise that they're in, that's when things are like going astray. Like that's maybe a litmus test you can have.
I was able to accept so much from this movie, but that moment I was really upset. But it was a very interesting social experiment to see how the theater erupted in applause. Yeah. While we sat there being grumpy.
Yeah. It was a well-executed moment of like catharsis, but also tied with this thing.
If Sigourney Weaver was saying it like upon re-meeting the aliens, maybe it could kind of work, but
yeah. Anyway, Alex, what's your lesson?
I just want to go back to the very beginning of the movie again, and I thought the way they introduced Andy was really interesting because we don't know he's replicant right off the bat, and I was
Android. Wrong Ridley Scott franchise.
Sorry, well, I like also how the beginning of this movie, the aesthetic of it was very Blade Runner-y, and it felt more pushing into that kind of theory of, is this actually all one universe? And I like kind of continuing to keep that alive, that kind of fanfic idea. Anyway, Andy, the not replicant, but android, we don't know that at first. And I was trying to read his performance as, he's kind of like developmentally disabled or on the spectrum. And she's kind of responsible for him. She is playing that role of a bigger sister, kind of taking care of him, because in this rough world, he would not be okay on his own. And I thought that was a really interesting choice to kind of, that immediately gives them an identifiable type of relationship besides like human and android brother, which is not something we can identify with. I thought it was a really, really well done introduction to his character and then reveal of the androidness. So it goes from being like a literal thing of, I can identify what this is, to, it's actually kind of allegory, maybe even for this type of a relationship between his siblings, where one of them is just not a baseline normal person, and there's a sibling relationship of caring between these two people. So yeah, I really liked their characters, and I liked the way that was all onboarded. And the other just really obvious lesson, and like everything else in this movie, it's kind of on the nose, but there's so much work being done to give us always a time pressure, ticking time bomb with the rings of the planet. And it does pay off with spectacular, awesome crashing into rings of a planet scenes. And so it is kind of like screenwriting 101, but they did a good job with just always having there be this immense time pressure.
Yeah, I agree. That relationship immediately makes it relatable. I think I knew kind of right away. It's like, it's going to be an android. That's clever. But like, regardless, the point is that it imbues that relationship with relatable meaning that then persists throughout the thing. And like that's just really well done. And those two actors are just really good. Like their connection and that kind of familial chemistry was really great. And I was invested immediately.
Yeah, and unlike Prometheus, like I actually would want to see a sequel with them. Like I don't think there's anybody from Prometheus that I was that excited to see in a movie again. But actually I would like to see those two characters in another movie in this franchise, if that's in the cards. And like you're saying, Brian, you know, if this movie, because of the studio or because the director decided it had to do all of the things like a Force Awakens, maybe there is a freedom in the next movie, if anybody wants that, to do something totally original and different, because they really did like blow their load in this one. Like they did everything. So it's like, what else is there to do? if you're gonna try to do like the legacy sequel rehash stuff, you've done it all.
They blew their goo. I wanted to also really quickly shout out a movie called Rye Lane that David Johnson was the male lead in last year. It's kind of a British rom-com, and I really enjoyed it. At one point they go to a taco stand called Love Guactually, and Colin Firth is the person who serves them.
Wow, they wrote that joke just for you, Brian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what else he does. The feeling I had when I saw Kaylee Spaney in
Priscilla,
thank you, of just like, oh, your career is going to be amazing. You're going to win a lot of Oscars. I'm so happy I get to be alive to see that. Is also I was feeling about David Johnson. Just like, okay, cool. New people to get excited about. It's really fun. Trisha, what's your lesson?
I have just like a really simple lesson about setups and payoffs, because I actually think this movie does them really well. I think the gravity thing is cool. Like, I think it's a really cool mechanic. They set it up incredibly well in that sequence where they're going to get to the cryopods. And we see like, okay, there isn't gravity. You've got the floating rat, right? Like there isn't gravity, but then it like resets. It does like a gravity purge. What would that be? But I don't know. I like it so much how that mechanic is envisioned and then shown to us, so we understand it completely. It's like, okay, it's a couple of minutes long, and then eventually the gravity comes and it hits, and then it pays off in that elevator shaft sequence to a degree where I was like, the gravity purge is coming, like you're gonna fall all the way down the shaft, and then also the elevator's gonna fall all the way down. Like, you know, I just think that's cleverly done. And for action movies, setups and payoffs, especially if you have like kind of like cool action mechanics, we need them set up early. We kind of need to forget about them, and then we need them paid off in a spectacular and unexpected way. And this really does that with that in particular. And of course, it also comes back to in the scene where she's like shooting them with the gun, and right, like we're giving you a gun to deter them, but you can't really shoot them with the gun because the acid's going to blow through everything. But we're going to die if we don't shoot them. Okay, turn on the gravity generator thing. And then I thought it all worked well. I think it is a little silly, that sequence with the floating acid blood, because I was like, you just made this hallway impassable, really. Like it would be actually totally filled with acid blood, and not navigable. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I've never been in space.
It didn't seem realistic to me, but I thought it was all fun ideas.
Maybe goo does all clump together in space. What do I know?
I mean, they're coming at, there's already momentum anyway.
Yes. Yeah. She got real lucky with alien blood physics.
It's true. But then there were other little moments of setup and payoff that I liked, right? Like a lot of the stuff with Andy's character is kind of set up where, you know, he gets beat up. She has to like reset, and we see her like working on what does the inside of his like board look like, all of this stuff. And there are a number of other things like that as well. Obviously, you have, the pregnant lady that comes back. They're like, who's the father? Some asshole. You know, we all know what kind of baby you're going to have. Anyway, but I just think that this movie does pay attention to those kinds of things and seed them in at the right time and with like sort of the right lightness of touch overall, that like they feel organic in the moment. They come back later in a really satisfying way. Even the idea that like, you're not just going to blow the alien hybrid thing out the airlock, you're going to crash it into the rings, right? Where it's like, it's actually gonna get destroyed by the rings of the planet that have been threatening you this whole time. Even stuff like that, I think, is really visually satisfying and satisfying as an idea. So really excellent action writing overall, I think.
Yeah. All those set pieces, goofy or not, were very clever, and you could feel that like thought and care was put into like, how do we make this fun and surprising? And there's enough logic there that you're like, oh, it does make sense. That's how it happened. Like, it was refreshing to see new, clever action set pieces, especially in a franchise that has a lot that you could just copy and paste. When they had new takes on those things, it was really fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do a couple stair-stepping lessons really quick, because we didn't talk about any of the technical stuff. I want to shout out that the sound dialogue mix was frustrating at times, but overall the sound design was amazing.
Sound design, score, like the VFX outside of being home, like everything was awesome. Yeah.
That's basically exactly what it was. Just like on a technical level, this was extremely impressive, mixing practical VFX to the point that I never quite knew which was which. Like, that it was all very well done and is an important part of the legacy of the Alien franchise too. So I think delivering on that visual spectacle is important, and they nailed it. So that was really, really cool. I was thinking a lot about casting, and we've already talked about the two leads who I really, really loved. And the other people, like, were also fine and good, but they didn't feel, I didn't believe them in the universe as much. And again, thinking back to the original Alien truck drivers in space, all kind of unknown people. They're all sort of different ages, and none of them are like too pretty. Like, basically watching some of the other characters, I was like, you're too pretty. Like, you're too pretty to be in this world, and for me to believe that you're like a blue collar worker person. It's nothing against you. You're doing what you need to do. But like, casting wise, there's just something about the kind of Expendables cast. I was like, I don't quite believe that you're in this universe and that you are this person. But maybe that's what you need to get younger generations in. I don't know. It's like, maybe it's fine.
There's a thing that it makes me feel like an old man right now, which is a lot of franchises. It's like, I don't care if you cast a 22-year-old or whatever, that's fine. But like, when they're really pretty and have like really well coiffed hair, or whatever, but then they're in Star Wars or Rings of Power or whatever, I'm just kind of like, no, that doesn't feel right. It's not that I mind that they are young. I mind that you made them feel like this, like they're on a Teen Beat, magazine cover or something.
Or it's like they're Instagram ready. They're not
right.
They're not mussed up in this world.
Right.
Right. Well, and I do wonder too if like maybe they're just not allowed to look
like in their contract.
Yeah,
I can't be ugly in this movie.
They're not allowed to look bad.
I have to have this hairstyle.
Or yeah, I don't know. Like, I wonder if it's a styling thing, right? Or even just like a performance thing where, we've talked about how like our favorite actors, not only do they have like interesting faces, but they're willing to look really undignified and really uncool and really like physically raw. And yeah, I do wonder if there's like some kind of restraint happening where they're just not able, or again, like maybe just like a hair makeup, like make them look worse. I don't know. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think House of the Dragon, I'll say, like, there are a lot of younger people in that show, and they all feel like they exist in that universe, like all from all the things we're talking about.
Yeah. I will say, what's her name? Isabella Merced? Is that? Yeah. I did really like her in this, though. Also, she plays the pregnant woman.
Kay.
I can't. Kay. Thank you. Can't remember the character.
She and Eileen Wu as Navarro both seemed. They kind of looked right for the world. It was like the pretty boy, Tyler.
Overall, though, I do wonder if it's maybe just a meta problem, right? Like, is it just like a studio problem?
Yeah, I definitely don't want to imply that these human beings are bad for any reason. I think it is the meta-ness of like, something about how this was represented on screen. They didn't quite fit into the world as well as I wanted it to. And just interesting to think about, I think, when you're doing a franchise that maybe has historically had a certain look to even the characters, keeping that in mind as part of the story world and how that's portrayed.
What makes me think of, I don't know the actress's name off the top of my head, but the other like lead female in Alien, just how extreme her performance gets and her fear.
Veronica Cartwright? Pulling that out of my somewhere. Yeah.
But just like, that's what I want from an Alien movie, is someone whose face is contorting because they're crying so hard because they're so freaked out. Like, where they don't look like a person anymore because they're so distraught. That's the good stuff.
That's the good stuff. And then lastly, as we're kind of coming to an end of the sequel summer season, you know what I'm talking about. The season that we're talking about, where we talked about sequels all summer. In our Deadpool and Wolverine episode, Ed Vega from Fox, who we've referenced earlier in the episode, his lesson was for that movie, like, just have fun, like, just give the audience like a good time. And Alex, you say this a lot of like, I just want to have fun. And I feel like Deadpool, that was sort of the theme of our whole conversation there, was like, there were lots of bumps and things that are not structurally exactly sound, but overall it was like a really good time and I had fun. And kind of looking back at the new sequels that came out, Twisters, Inside Out 2, Quiet Place, like, those were all fun. Like, they weren't perfect, but I had a really good time watching them. Furiosa, maybe it wasn't as fun and didn't do as well. And so it's just interesting thinking about also where we are in movie history coming out of COVID and just all the struggles that are happening and the restraints that have kind of shackled movies in some ways as they try to balance everything and check all the boxes. There was something interesting about this summer where it felt like there was a little bit of a release and a permission to just have fun and kind of go for it. And that's cool. And I'm glad that movies can be fun, because they weren't fun a little bit for a while there.
And maybe that's what sequels are for, like sequels. I mean, sometimes they surpass the original and they're incredible, but most of the time they don't. And I guess a sequel that is a really good time and isn't boring or annoying most of the time is a success, I think. And we had a lot of successful sequels by that metric this summer.
And most of the movies that we talked about, most of the sequels were around 2 hours and not 2 hours and 45 minutes, because we're trying to shove in every single thing we can think of, and really drag down the pacing and like do all the things. It's like, just give me a story, have fun, let's do it.
When I think there's something, when a movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes, it's kind of declaring itself as very important.
Right.
Or, like this is a very important movie. It has to be almost 3 hours to do all the important things it has to do. And there's something, refreshing about, like, we're not important. We're Twisters, and we're going to have fun,
Right.
Yep.
You don't need 2 hours and 45 minutes for Twisters. We're just going to have a good time.
Good God.
Please, dear God, no. That's a horrifying
We got triplets. What else have you guys been watching recently? Brian, what have you been watching recently?
Well, since we're talking about horror, I went and saw Longlegs, but I didn't like it, so I'm going to talk about Thelma instead, which was really fun and adorable and awesome. It's June Squibb as a grandma who gets scammed out of $10,000, and then she hops on a 2-person scooter with Shaft to go get it back, and it is like Mission Impossible meets The Straight Story, and it is delightful. And they literally like they're watching Dead Reckoning in the movie, and then like they start using that kind of thing as like a tonal joke throughout the movie, that she has to like navigate her way through just like the smallest space or whatever. So someone's on like a phone with her telling her what to do, that kind of thing. And she is just everyone's mom or grandma. Like, you will 100% go, I've had this exact interaction before, like trying to teach her how to use the computer. You have to hit the X, but the X is kind of hidden. You have to figure out where it is. And it's got Parker Posey and Clark Gregg and Malcolm McDowell and Fred Heckinger, who was the Steve Zahn's son in White Lotus season 1, who was like obsessed with his phone. And he annoyed me in the movie simply because he was so patient with her. And I'm like, I don't like that you're better than me. Because that is very much not me. I'm like, I told you to hit the X. But no, it was so delightful. And I feel like this movie, I don't laugh out loud a lot, but I'll do like a convulsing, like clapping body, resting thing. And Deadpool and Wolverine and Thelma are two of the movies in recent memory to make me actually like have that kind of reaction. I think I like moved to the floor at one point during this movie because I was having such a good, hilarious time with the finale. The finale is awesome. So Thelma, highly recommended. And if someone's like, do you want to go see Longlegs? You're like, I have a better idea, is what I would suggest.
Nice.
Alex's movie is Longlegs.
I also saw Longlegs,
Alex,
and I don't need to talk about it either.
Yeah.
Well, what do you need to talk about, Alex?
So we're talking about a sci-fi movie today, and I've been recently returning to my sci-fi roots, visiting some 90s Star Trek.
Oh, not like visiting your home planet. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going home. So I was raised on, there was this kind of golden era of 90s Trek, which was kind of 3 overlapping shows: Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Star Trek Voyager. I really have seen probably every episode of Next Generation and Voyager. I had only kind of intermittently seen Deep Space Nine, but I've always heard it's like the best Star Trek show and the most like politically interesting, and you really should watch the whole thing. And so I'm finally going back and watching it. I'm going to Reddit to find out the most important episodes to watch, because these are 22 episode seasons and there's 7 seasons and I don't have the time for that. But I am watching the kind of like essential episodes, and it's just reminding me like, wow, TV used to be so different. We used to just have these tight 43-minute episodes with act breaks that required you to kind of be efficient with your storytelling, have constant reversals and cliffhangers, A plot, B plot, like good little character arcs. It's like, have we forgotten how to do this because we don't have the constraints anymore? I really think we have, because I'm like, this episode isn't like amazing, but I was like very entertained the entire time, and I was never bored. I wasn't like, where is this going? Like, why is this scene dragging? And it's also this lovely period of Star Trek where it's cheesy, it's like very 90s, but also it's elevated in this lovely way of like earnestly trying to depict a future where the people in charge are just trying to be like really good people and do the right thing. And it's just like ethical political dilemmas for like people trying to be good. and but it has like conflict in those dilemmas, but it's a really remarkable, like unique thing that Star Trek pulled off, which is like, this isn't a show about like deeply disturbed, like screwed up people because of this trauma from their past. And, Breaking Bad, it's not the anti-hero thing that is almost like required now. It's just like a cast of characters that have all of their own character things and problems, but they're striving to like fulfill these like high standards of the Federation. So it's been like this wonderful comfort food for me, and I'm just really enjoying it. So if you too grew up on one of these shows, I highly recommend like going back to them. It's very cozy.
Amazing. Excellent. Okay, cool. Trisha, what about you?
Yeah, I caught a 2023 French film called The Beast, starring Léa Seydoux and George McKay. And have you seen it, Brian?
No, but I almost watched it last night.
Oh man, okay. You should watch it. Yeah. It's really interesting. It's extremely loosely based on a Henry James novella, and it's set over like 3 periods of time, right? Where it's like they're playing characters. The idea is that there's a near future world where Léa Seydoux's character has to undergo this like hypnotherapy to like cleanse her of her past lives so she can be a better worker, like, and less of a disturbed person. So she like has to be taken through all of her past lives to get them cleansed, and she can be more efficient and a better worker for the company. And it's like sort of a thing that everyone's required to do. So she goes through these past lives where she's had different relationships with the George McKay character. And it's really interesting. I'm not going to say it's sci-fi. It's really mostly like a romantic drama, and where it goes is fascinating. Like, I don't know if I am well qualified to evaluate it like as a movie, but as kind of an experimental dreamlike, I just liked it. It was a good experience watching it. The performances are great. The ideas are really interesting. There's an interesting thing that happens where, because these are her past lives, there are real stakes in every scene because the characters are going to die at some point. Like, that they are, and you're kind of like, how and when and what happens? And there's real danger and suspense, and in addition to like romantic tension and all this stuff. It's really interesting. And I overall really liked it. The Beast from 2023.
Nice. Very cool. Well, so kind of in a sequel summer-esque vein. So I watched The Bear season 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about any spoilers.
The tone that you're using right now.
Sorry. Yeah, it's the tone. I've always kind of struggled with The Bear. I'm gonna come out and say this. I'm gonna be brave and say that like The Bear actually has been hard for me sometimes to get into.
I'm so proud of you.
As someone who is not a foodie and who is like kind of turned off by like, oh my God, restaurants and like food, blah. That's been hard to overcome. But like excellent writing, excellent performances, excellent execution has won me over in the first 2 seasons, 100%. Season 3 has been really interesting, and I don't know the details of how it was made. There's been writer strike, there's been actor strikes, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to do a bad faith projection that's kind of just a thought experiment. But as we've been talking about with sequels, how do you do something new, but also the same? Like, people want the same thing that you've given them before, but maybe as a creator, you don't want to just keep copying yourself. But if you do something different, then you're not doing the thing that people are here for. And again, maybe this is projection, but season 3 really felt like a thing that has, in season 1, created something new. Season 2 did cool, interesting twists on it and kind of got out there and really nailed some of the directions that it went. And season 3 felt almost like we gotta one-up ourselves and how weird we can be with some of the storytelling and the episode structures and stuff.
And also not move the plot forward at all.
And also not move the plot forward whatsoever. And so it was just a really interesting show to be watching while we've been talking about sequels, and all these things have been on my mind. And as a creator, what do you do? And so it's definitely worth watching. And I'm sure people that know the show have already watched it and have their opinions. But it's just an interesting angle to think about when watching it is, how do you one-up yourself? Especially if kind of the thing that you got known for is subverting expectations of what's normal. Once you've subverted expectations, the new expectation is to subvert expectations. So how do you subvert a subversion of expectations? Because you can't just do not that, because then like you've kind of subverted yourself into a corner. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what happened with season 3 for me.
Right.
So anyway, The Bear season 3 is really interesting. I look forward to season 4.
Yeah, I will say, despite my comment, that I loved the season. But there's an interesting thing that happens where a lot of shows have to end their season as if, in case it's the last episode of the show ever, right? This is the first season of The Bear where they got picked up for 2 seasons at once. So it felt like a lot of build up, and then we'll see where we go in season 4 but like 8 episodes of build up, right? But I also want to say that Jamie Lee Curtis, this may be her best performance ever in both season 2 and 3. And like maybe she might be like the best actor alive. I'm not sure, but the Ice Chips episode of Bear season 3 blew my mind.
Yeah. The episode to episode experience is weird too. Where like some of the episodes it was like nothing happened, and then other episodes it's like, oh, this was an amazing block of
amazing piece of
yeah.
I guess I had to keep going because I actually really liked the first episode of the season. I was in the mood for it. I liked the music. I was like, I'm down for this tone poem
Because they just took 9 Inch Nails and just put it throughout the episode again.
It got me, and I was like, I know this can't be the whole season, so it's like cool, like palate cleanser, reintroduction episode. And the second episode, I just like couldn't stand, and I fell off. But I got to finish it because I know there's some like real standouts in the season.
Yeah, it's a really interesting show. I'm happy it exists, and like I said, looking forward to season 4.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we did it. We talked about all the sequels of the summer. Thank you, patrons, for going on this ride with us, for supporting the show, for making it possible. Like we said at the top, there's a lot of fun patron exclusive stuff for all you guys, all you listeners over on the Beyond Screenplay Patreon. Next month, we're going to be talking about Garden State as our patron exclusive for the 20th anniversary. I'm very excited and maybe a little bit nervous. I don't know what it's going to awaken inside of me to go back to.
It's better not awaken anything.
Awaken anything inside of me. But that's going to be a lot of fun. This season's been a lot of fun. Thank you guys for making it possible. Thank you to our producer, Vince Major. Thank you to our editor, Mike Wuerth, and the whole Nebula Studios team. I'm Michael Tucker. I've been joined today by Trisha Arand, Brian Bittner, and Alex Calleros. All of our Twitter handles are in the show notes. Send us a tweet and say hi, and we will see all of you patrons next month for our discussion of the 2004 classic, Garden State.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.